So we're moving to the sales and marketing roundtable, which will be run by Nicolas from Yes, I Am. We have the pleasure to have with us Beata from Project and People, Fiamma from InVibe, which is basically innovation with a good vibe. How cool is that? And finally, David from Fetch. So I wish you a good session, and we'll let you in good hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Sami. So maybe we can start by introducing ourselves one by one. Beata.
Okay, very shortly, my name is Beata Mosór-Szyszka. I came from Poland, from Krakow. Anyone were in Krakow? A couple of guys here. It's a beautiful city. Feel free to to come and see it by yourself. And I'm running my own marketing agency, basically lean marketing agency, and I'm a Google mentor too.
Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Fiamma. I am Italian, but I live in France for a long time. I'm co-founder of InVibe. So InVibe means innovation in good vibes. We are a digital platform whose objective is to optimize the business that is generated by meetings and datings between corporations and startups. And so I have the pleasure to be in this discussion to share our experience in sales related to innovation projects.
Hello, I'm Lakomski. I was just a growth lead at Fetch. I just ended my mission. I finished my work there. So now I'm back on the consulting side on growth marketing strategy. I was a startup CEO. I was a consultant for 5 years. I've been in the first course and training on the growth hacking in France here in Paris, and that's what I'm doing since then.
Thank you very much. And I'm Nicolas Vérité from the organization team, Lean Startup Experience, and I do nothing, open for a new job. So thank you very much. So I understand we have one marketing, one sales, and one bastard.
Yeah, no marketing.
Marketing, okay. So excuse me, I have my cheat sheet here. I'm not checking on my email, all right? So we're going to start with a few questions. I'm going to animate all these, and then afterwards we're going to go through your questions and their answers, all right? Does it work? Cool. So the goal of this discussion is to deliver key takeaways so that people here can learn and apply the next morning. Do we agree on that? Thank you. So the first thing I was wondering about is how do marketing and sales team collaborate together? Who's first?
Okay, so there at Fetch, we had city managers because our business model is based on the proximity with the customers. Fetch is like a Deliveroo, like. We are on the cities, middle cities around France. As in a collaboration with the sales, because they were setting our company to restaurants, to drivers, to local people there. It was hard at the beginning to make them understand that experimenting and learning on your market is what was the most important, and not just trying to sell on the air with traditional things. So
learning. Who's up for an answer?
I can answer here. We are a flat organization. Did you hear about flat management, maybe? No management organizations? Anyone who heard about it? Okay. So basically, it means that we don't have departure business units. I know that from guys from corporates, especially, it sounds ridiculous, but it's a great concept in my opinion. We believe that there is no need to have the exact sales department or marketing department, so there is no need to communicate between them. And our approach is to build the inbound marketing to generate sales. So we have only one person responsible for sale because its role, this person's role is to proceed leads which are coming to our funnel. They are not generate new leads, they are only proceeded to finalize the sales. Is there anyone who is perceiving sales in the same way, maybe, or have the experience in that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so 90% of our leads are natural. We don't how to say it in English. We don't do anything. Do not do any marketing in the regular meaning, or sales in the regular meaning to generate them. 10% is generated by events, media visibility, things like that. Those 90% is inbound, in the meaning that old clients are recommending us, we are famous by our activities, or recognizable as a company.
Yeah, just one comment. I think the connection between marketing and sales is very much related to what innovation is, because when you have a product that exists already and you can do marketing first to define an audience, a segment or a target, and afterwards doing sales, because you can direct a dedicated sales team to a segment which you are supposed to know beforehand, to sell a product which is also supposed to be known. But actually when you do innovation, you don't know who to sell, and you don't know what the exact product is. So you cannot do marketing and then sales. You have to continuously iterate between the two.
So I hear, sorry, no silos, flat hierarchy, that's what I wanted to hear. Before we go further, can you raise your hands? Okay, you're all sleeping, all right. No, okay. Who's marketing person? Thank you. Who's salesperson? And he's late. Who's both? Who's none? Good. What are you if you're none of this? Innovation. Good. All right. Thank you. I just could check that nobody is sleeping. That's cool. So the next question I had is about data and evidence rather than opinion and cognitive biases. What can you say about that? Difficult.
In fact, the question is already biased. So, at first, I think that the main objective of a company is to understand its market and understand how it can perform on it. So to be able to understand it, you can't guess it. You have to discover it, because your market is not deciding, is deciding. You're not deciding on what is good for it. So you need to test everything. So you need to have data, and you need to understand what people want to deliver it. So the fact is that data for me is everything. So I won't be really reliable on the assumption side, but that's my point. Yeah.
Sarah, you told me about gut feelings.
Yeah. We had quite an interesting discussion while preparing this roundtable on that point, because actually, personally, I come from a traditional sales experience in corporations, and so I've done tons of trainings about the sales process and what drives a customer to buy. And I don't know if you know the percentage of the decision-making process in a sales process that is related to opinion and feelings with respect to 100%. How much in you? Yeah, it's around 70%. Okay, so I have to say, as a start-upper, it's a daily challenge and paradox to live with this knowledge, because I know that also when I buy in my personal life, that I use more feelings than data. And on the other side, I've been taught, and I need to play with lean startup and growth hacking techniques where data is everything. So.
That's kind of an irony here, because you say gut feeling with numbers.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, I would totally agree with David. I'm on evidence-based sites, definitely, as a lean marketer and a growth hacker too. And what I can ask here, is to encourage you to test many analytics tools. Like, do not focus on the most popular ones. For example, Google Analytics. I know that it's the most popular. When I had my talk earlier on, almost 100% people told that they use it. But there's many interesting analytical tools, like, for example, Hotjar or Kissmetrics or any other. There's many of them. Just pick up those ones which are interesting and valuable for you, for your business and for your flow and for your funnel, because it's easy to focus on data which are too general, which are too high level, and you need to go deeper. To understand your users, you need to go deeper and build very specific data bases or grab this knowledge from the market based on really specific tools. David, maybe you can add something here.
We can also add some. Sometimes you can't use analytics tools to measure some things. For example, if you're doing a radio ad, you won't be able to track what you're doing, or you will be able to see a spike in the metrics, but that's not really worth it. The really interesting thing is how you can measure really precisely what you're doing. For example, you have a professional presentation card, or I don't know how to say it, whatever, and you have an URL on it. You can play with the .fr, .com, .net, etc. To track the direction of this. You can use UTM tags. You can use also promo codes or etc. Or you can segment also your actions to be able to know that the spike was from this point. So you have several ways to measure things, and the principle is to measure things in order to take the decision, because you want to understand something. The worst thing is to begin with data and don't know what to do with it. The best thing is to know what you're looking for, what you don't know precisely, to be able to know it afterward.
And sometimes with numbers you have unexpected learnings. What about, I'm going to skip a few questions that we prepared, okay, with that? Maybe on, who knows pirate metrics? Who doesn't know pirate metrics? So pirate, I'm going to move the mic away. Pirate is like, because it's AARRR, which is I need my cheat sheet. Acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, referral. So it's a funnel. So do you use that model in your campaigns and efforts?
Anyone would like to start? I would say that this model is very popular, especially in lean marketing and growth hacking. And as we mentioned already during the discussion of the previous question, sometimes it's really hard to measure things. So building such a funnel, as Nico called it, is really useful. It's structured your data already, and it lets you very valuable information. Giving some sense of meaning those stats, those data, to those of you who doesn't know it. It's all about measuring how users are performing with your, for example, landing page, ad. It could be any form. You don't have to use it only for websites, as it's the most popular in my opinion. But you can add it in any form you will choose. For example, even in I don't know, mailing, for example, or newsletter. So it's and it's coming with the whole funnel, so it can start with the user who is coming to your funnel from many activities, many channels, and ending with the sales. So you need to be able to connect all of the tools across your marketing and sales activities.
Actually, if you try to use the R funnel, you maybe realize that it was kind of difficult to respect the order, and actually it's normal, because every business has its own model, and it's only a starting point to be able to model what you're doing. What I can tell you is that funnel is not everything, and I can tell you a story about it. You have also the KPIs of your business and the health of it. For example, I was working with a business unit specialized in a specific product that we were launching, and it was a two-sided marketplace to match craftsmen men with people. Like you want to do you want to find a plumber or something to paint your login or something, and I told them, well, if you consider the buyer-seller ratio, if the seller side is too heavy, you will have a problem with sellers, and they were growing the seller base a lot. Like crazy, and it's always the easiest side of the two-sided marketplace, and they were growing it like crazy, and at the end of the day, the metrics were good, but the sellers just came and put fire on people. So just consider your specific business model KPIs to know that having some kind of this model will work, yeah, and will be fine with you.
Yeah, maybe just one comment. If I compare this funnel with the standard sales funnel, which we might learn in commercial studies, actually it's not so different. What is different is the role of data, the speed of action, and I would say maybe the stage where you put money and attention on, the level of automatization. But if somebody of you ask yourself, but is it something really new on the sales side? Well, I don't think so, to be honest.
Thank you. Who's coming from a scientific background? Don't be shy. Raise your hand higher. Or are you sleeping? Sorry. Yeah, engineering is science. Yeah, cool. Thank you. So my next question is not a question. Experimentations.
Start.
So I think first, if you want to speak and to talk about experimentation, we have to say two things: what is an experimentation, and what are the kinds of experimentation you can make. So first thing, what is an experimentation? You have an hypothesis, you have a protocol, you have you measure thing, and you have learnings from it. Second thing, you have three types of experimentation. You have the pure experimental experimentation, which is usually seen as A/B testing or something. You have semi-experimental experimentation, which is you're segmenting your base and trying to find which segment is better than the other. And the last one is the observational one, which is, for example, when you're doing retention optimization, you'll find the people that are already retained, and you find with interviews why they are retained. So you're doing this backward, and to be able to do other experimentation to rebuild it for it.
Having in mind that you need to leave a room with some takeaways, as Nick mentioned, and I don't want to repeat what David already said. So, who of you is using Lean Canva or Business Model Canva or any other tool like this? Okay. You should use it. I won't introduce the idea. It's basically the Canva which shows on one to say it, sheet of paper, yeah, all of the ingredients, elements of your business model. And I'd like to encourage you to come back to home, take this link Canva, write down all of your knowledge about your business, all of the ingredients of your business model, and then mark somehow what is the hypothesis and what is the fact, what is the data. Actually, when we are doing this exercise with our clients and with our customers, usually around 70%, 80% even, it's only hypothesis. There is no data behind it. So what's next? You can be terrified. Okay, I'm based on only intuition, and there's no data behind my business model. What's next? So next is this experimentation. Next, you can validate your hypothesis very easily by A/B tests and all of the tools which David already mentioned. I encourage you to do also quality tests, so interview with users, some focus groups, and all type of research, which is already treated as unfashioned, let's say, old-fashioned, but it's still valuable in my opinion. So mix both internet tests or digital tests and old-fashioned ones, and verify all of the gaps in your business model, all of the hypotheses you have. Everywhere where there's no fact behind the thing on the business model, you should validate it.
Yeah, what I can say is that if I take a pure sales perspective on that, it's very difficult to experiment sales on an innovative product, and that's also a nice discussion we had with Nicolas before starting this roundtable, because actually the dream is to be able to industrialize and to standardize the sales process, of course, because this costs less money than doing personalized sales. Each customer or each person would love to be treated as an individual with a specific process, but this is simply not possible. And with innovative projects, it's even more difficult because, as I said before, you want to industrialize, you are not able to because you don't know the product, you don't know exactly who the target is, and you are also pretty unable actually to judge. Either you do the sales yourself as a co-founder of a startup or as the idea maker of an innovative project, and then what you sell initially in this experimentation phase is more yourself, your mission, your value, your conviction. You're not actually selling a product. But this you can do alone, you can do yourself. It's difficult to ask a junior person coming in your team as a junior seller and saying, okay, please sell my vision, my mission, my life, my experience. This is actually not possible, okay? So you start by a sort of experimentation where you sell a value proposal instead of the product, and then you are faced with this phase where you say, okay, now I need to do something more, I need to do something different. And so you need to try and industrialize by transferring a packaged offer around a piece of value proposal and then a piece of product to a third person, and then continuously readapt this because first you sell the MVP and then something more and something more.
Just add something on sales, on the sales process and how you can approach holistically the sales process. In fact, when you're doing sales, you're selling a product. So you're the perfect interface with the customer to be able to validate or invalidate product and business hypotheses. Even if it's really qualitative, in fact, you're in the front of the communication with the customer. So you can tweak the product, the offer, everything, and to test on your interview what we can do and what we can add to the product, and include really the customer in the whole product process. So I think it's really important for some kind of products to have a great sales in product ready people.
Thank you, because that was exactly my next question. So it's a proof that you have well prepared your roundtable. Thank you. So I wanted to know how many of you are big corporates? Thank you. How many are startups? Unemployed? Oh, thank you. You're a student. It's worse. Sorry. So my next question, and we're going to keep two, and then we're going to give the microphone to the audience, okay? So the next question is very, very down to earth. Is how do you start from a blank sheet?
Anyone don't want to take the question, so I will start maybe. It depends on which we are talking about. If we are talking about the marketing activities or sales activities or product itself, the process is quite different, in my opinion. But my favorite tool, as I already mentioned, is Link Canva. And if we are talking about the very basic idea, which is in the phase of the developing of the development, we are always starting with writing down what's the problem we are solving and how we are doing it, and what is our unique value proposition, or about what unique value proposition we are thinking, because that's the base to test, that's the base to experiment, and that's the base to to all of the even marketing and sales activities. If we were talking about marketing, we can't talk about any activities, any channels, any even form of marketing or activities without thinking about our unique value proposition and target group and about problem they have. It needs to be connected, in my opinion. That's my approach. And even if we are designing the marketing campaign and the client is corporate and they don't know all of this, lean startup stuff and things, and then they've never heard about lean canvas, we are discussing all of these things which are in this lean canvas, but we are not calling it like that. But it's so important to get to know it better, get to know the business model better, and then think about channels, tools. That's the second thing. The user, its problem, and unique value proposition. That's the key. That's the crucial thing for any activity connected with marketing and sales, in my opinion, obviously.
I can add that you're always everyone is telling you that you need to make a business plan to launch a business, but in fact you need to have a learning plan. You have to have some kind of experimentation process and learning process. You need to know what is the most critical thing I have to validate, to invalidate today, and rehearse this prioritization as often as needed, to be to know that that's what you need to tackle at some point. So how to start from a blank sheet? That's with a learning plan, identify what you don't know, prioritize it, and tackle it step by step.
Yeah, my way of answering to this question is to share an experience. We run a Lean B2B sales startup academy together with Frank, Nicolas, and other people.
I'm a customer, happy customer.
Yeah. And in these training courses, we help startups to sell from the very early stage. And so one point we share with them is that we incentivize them to go and sell from day one, even when they don't have anything to sell, actually. So what they say is, what the hell should I sell if I have nothing to sell? Yeah, because when we say to them you should sell, we are meaning by that having income, not having users, really having customer paying ones, which is slightly different. And so actually, to be honest, having seen different experience and having made our own as well, if somebody asked me, would you recommend to stay in this learning curve, incentivizing the fact of having plenty of users, and first learn and then maybe have paying customer only at the stage when you already more or less know what you want to sell? Or would you recommend start selling even, I would say, by hand or a sort of consulting services if your offer allows to, before building a product? What would you recommend? To be honest, I would say, I don't know, because I have contradictory experiences on that. But what I know is that the business plan curve will not be the same. And this is important to know, because even if I like this idea of having only a learning plan and not a business plan, because we all know that when entrepreneurs or innovative people do business plan at the beginning, they just put numbers and they have no idea what they put in, and they will never do it, okay? Despite that, I have to say I know no corporation that allow entrepreneurs to do an innovative project without putting together a business plan, because they have to justify investment. And I know no entrepreneurs that can afford, at least in Europe, going to a financing institution and saying, sorry, I don't have a business plan, please give me money anyway because I will learn a lot. I don't know any. If you know one, please let me know because I'm interested in it, okay? And so what I want to say is that if you start by selling, you will most probably sell a value proposal first and then a product afterwards. So you will have a phase in between, something like after 18 months, where your revenue will be in a plateau, because at the beginning, if you are a good seller and your value proposition meet the requirement, you will sell something. But then you will need to turn this value proposition selling into a product selling, and this will take time. And so you cannot afford defending a sort of business plan which is exponential, which all financial institution or VC like, because in reality you will have something like that. So I would say rising curve at the beginning, then a plateau, and then if you are successful, an exponential curve. On the other side, if you can afford not having customers from day one, then you will be on a sort of zero plateau at the beginning, and then when it goes well, you will have this exponential curve. So my only recommendation is choose one of the two strategies, but put together a business plan that is according to the strategy you have chosen.
Yeah. I can put in perspective, on my point of view, what you just said. I had a client some time ago that had a really B2C business, shipping B2C business, and he had close to no money, but enough for me. But he wanted to launch something on a specific market. The chance was that he had not really a precise idea of what he wanted to do, but he wanted to do something on it. So we did maybe 250 customer interviews in 6 months, and we deeply knew the market with it. With it, we defined clearly what was the behavioral persona between behind the business he wanted to make. We validated qualitatively a lot of pre-qualified hypotheses, and at some point we really knew the market. So making an experiment, an acquisition experiment on the whole funnel on Facebook for that experiment. We were able at this point to measure the customer acquisition cost, and we made people pay before making this experiment and after. And at the end of the day, we reached saturation in in the way we were doing our MVP. So we stopped the operation, and we were ready to find investors or people to finance it. And he found someone who invested in his company because he knew perfectly his market. He knew the customer acquisition cost. He know how to deliver the products in the good way. He had everything, and everything was tested. So you can make this process really resource effective enough to launch what you want.
All right, we have to go now in the second part of this. So, dziękuję, grazie, merci, thank you. Now it's your turn to work. You have questions? No. What questions you had? Not you.
There are a lot of return of experience, lessons learned, literature about growth hacking in B2C. But what about B2B? Do you think there are key differences between B2C and B2B, or do you think that... One letter, yeah. Or do you think that there's a way to lift barrier, especially in growth hacking between B2C and B2B?
Actually, the first question to ask is what is growth hacking? Maybe.
What is it?
So it's a holistic way to see marketing and growth. In fact, for a growth hacker, the true north and the only one objective is growth. So everything must be toward this objective. We don't bother doing awareness thing because you can't measure it correctly. So, for example, as a really big difference between B2C and B2B, it's true for small companies and small volume markets. That's this matter of volume. You can't have a really statistically significant experiment on a small volume and a high variation of speech or people. It's easier to do to make a good product in B2B because you have really specific use case more than in B2C, or it's part of a noise, a common noise for people. But it's harder because you have more noise with the customer directly. That's why you need to be more qualitative. So I think the main difference between the two is that you need to be more qualitative in one way and more quantitative in the other.
Always when I hear this question about differences between B2B and B2C, and I'm talking about, I'm answering that there are always people in the end. So if you know your customers, even if it's B2B, there are people who are responsible for decisions. There are people who are dealing with you. That's not the idea of the company is talking with you. That's the person. She or he has some roles, some responsibilities, some emotions, etc. So in the end, it's always about B2C in general. Going into details. If you know who is on the other side in the company in B2B, if you know your personas, if you investigated the problem and needs of those people, you can target them using probably different channels than in B2C in B2C in general, let's say, but you can approach them in the very similar way. That's nothing scary. And maybe that's the difference. Like if you will talk about approaching and getting clients from B2B, it's harder to get the client. But if we will change the approach and think about, okay, who in this company is responsible for this sector? What problem they have? What problem we can solve? How we can solve this person particularly? Sometimes not organization even, but this person, you can sell it or market this with more successes, in my opinion. I don't know if you will agree.
One point I would like to share is that for me there is one difference on the referral phase, because I have the feeling that recovering from test phases in B2C, where actually what you tested was not what was required, is little easier than doing this in B2B, because people in B2B do talk with each other. They meet in the peers clubs and so on. And so if you don't choose a proper communication in the way you do testing, then what you might face is that people, I would say, talk with each other and are driven to conclusion, even if they are not participating to the test phase, because some of their peers have talked about something, and they don't judge by their own opinion, but by the opinion that is generated by these peer-to-peer discussions.
Next question.
Do you have any examples in big corporations on how to have sales department incentivized to help test experiments, because they have their figures to make, they have sales to make, and how can you encourage them to help marketing or innovation to test hypotheses?
That's going to be tough.
Yeah, actually, Damien and I had this experience because we were both in charge of the sales department and the innovation one. So this might be one answer to your question, meaning trying to align as much as possible the sales governance between standard offering and innovation offering. Not only in terms of sales objective, but also in terms of management style, management talk, and day-to-day attitude with respect to innovation. So what we tested, last time we did it in a corporation, was actually to make a piece of the incentive, of the sales incentive on innovation, on innovative offers. And what we did was to add it to the incentive they were already accustomed to. So what I mean by this is that it's an investment for the company, of course, because it increases the envelope of the sales incentive, but it's much more motivating for people to say, okay, if I feel comfortable with innovation, I will earn more money. If I don't feel comfortable, I still can meet my previous objectives without doing it. So nobody feels hurted, I would say. And you can only find people that will definitely sell innovative product because they're excited about it.
My answer to that is those people are usually into some processes. They used to work in the same way for a couple of years, so they are used to usually they're afraid of change. That's the thing. It's not about that they afraid of new knowledge or anything because they are testing new things, etc. But they're afraid of change. And I have two good examples where it works very fine. Where the change was implemented, and we tested in very big corporations. It was Sabre. Do you know Sabre, maybe? Sabre is a global company which is creating software for airlines. 40% of market in States for that. And what we did was we engaged the sales team into the process of testing, and let them to do that together with us, co-created. So we used their knowledge. We didn't fail that. We know more than they. They have their knowledge about sales, which is great, and we had knowledge about testing. So we co-created it together. And I believe this way is participatory. Is the best one, because you are not fighting with them, but you are, help them to achieve their goals better, or even achieve their goals with better results.
Okay, I'm wearing the hat to answer that. I experimented something that worked once only, so maybe you want to experiment it, but don't tell my company I did it. Okay. So how do you incentive sales? Well, you don't. That's my answer. So what I did as a project manager is I pivoted a little bit, pivoted the targeting. So I could reach out to people that we don't usually reach out to with the sales and marketing departments. So I skipped them all. That's why don't tell that to anyone. I skipped them all. I met the people, interviewed them, gathered a lot of insights from the market, fabricated the product, and it became suddenly mature enough so that we are confident to market it. So the next thing you have to do when you have built your product is to sell it internally to your marketing and sales. And then they are confident enough to own it totally and go to the market with it. Just one, I underline, one experiment, it worked. Maybe if you want to try it again. It's risky. I quit. I was not fired.
I didn't have an experience that can answer your question directly, but I can tell you about the experience I've made with salespeople at Fetch. The first problem was that they were incentivized with the overall city volume of order. So for me, it was the worst incentivization possible for them, because it was justified in some way, but not really, because so they were really pushing marketing to do everything but what we need to do, because marketing has to help me going to my destination. The problem is maybe the metric you consider, because it's really powerful as an objective setting. But the second point, it was like it was said, make the people engaged in the company, which it was the case at Fetch. Everyone is really engaged in the company's success. And they want to help, and they want to be part of the team, and they want to help. Everyone wants to help everyone, and so I cut the marketing side, the marketing support we were giving them, because they were asking flawed things. But I proposed them to execute experiments, like with associations. We needed to know if we could gather emails directly to be able to make a partnership. It was one of their mission, and so I explained how we can make this experiment. They know that they had a lot of leads for this, so they treat the demand, and we shared the results and the success of the experiments too. So. Yeah, it's a matter of participation and motivation also.
So great questions and great answers. Thank you. Maybe one last question. Maybe no last question. Maybe you're hungry. Maybe
I am.
You are? Are you shy? You have no challenge in your companies? All right, so I'm going to take my cheat sheet and ask you a tough question. Sure, okay, I'm going to go with... What about open innovation? Is it good?
That's what I call
otherwise
solidarity,
I got
round table.
What about systemic and holistic approaches?
I can take the first one, but not both. Okay. So
go on, Fiamma. What's open innovation? How do you cope?
Okay. Who knows what open innovation is? Yeah.
Please define.
Okay. So I will give you two definitions. One you know because it's obvious, but I say it in any case. So companies that might already have R&D department and that realize that they cannot do innovation by their own, so they decide to open, and they include other parties, academics or startups or any party coming from the so-called innovation ecosystem, and they bring them into the companies so that working together with internal competencies, they can reach their growth and innovation targets. This is the basic definition. And then I have my own, which we like at Invite very much. It's, for me, open innovation basically is business, okay, at the end. So sounds very trivial, but it is business. The only point is that it's often more business development than business, and business development is really a competence in itself. So building businesses that are not existing already and make them true and scalable is a competence in itself, which you can apply on innovation or not, but it's a competence. And it is, of course, difficult business because especially when you do it in consortium, like in the open innovation case, so you have different parties working together. It's very difficult to make business together because nobody knows where we are going to. Nobody knows what the product is, nobody knows who the customer is, and nobody knows how to do it, okay? But remembering that open innovation at the end is more business than technology, and that most of the innovative business that fail do not fail because of technology, but they fail because they don't find a business model that is repeatable, scalable, and profitable in the long run, is for me a way to keep track in difficult periods.
Okay. This is the end? Okay, okay.
It's one of my takeaways from this conference is that the French open innovation is quite different than I expected, to be honest. I heard a lot here about internal innovation of corporates, entrepreneurship. There's a couple of talks here about it, etc. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I came from Poland. And we have very strong culture of going out of the building and going out of the corporates more to meet the new things. So I don't know about France, but in Poland there is a couple of models which are working very fine. And I will give you real examples. Okay. Would that be okay, or would you like more theoretical ones? So practical or theoretical? Okay, so
2 minutes.
Okay, just a couple of examples. For example, Deutsche Telekom, T-Mobile built in Poland the special department, which is a separate company, separate brand called Hubraum. You probably know it, maybe no one, and it's a part of the company as formally. But in the end, that's a separate company, separate team, which is working with innovation and looking for innovation in the market. It's not an R&D. It works like a venture capital, but on a very early stage, on a seed stage, and they are going to cooperate with different companies, like for example with Cisco, with Intel. Do you know Cisco, Intel? Do you have it in France? Yeah. BMW, for example, to look for new business models from different and benchmarking from different industries, not only from telecommunication. That's the one model, for example. The other one is one of the biggest Polish banks, and they are buying startups, but they are not incorporated them at all. They are buying them, and in the meaning of buying 100% of stakes, but they are not interrupting their activities until they grow enough to be a part of the corporate. That's two models which are very popular in Poland, and I can hear that it works really different in France. There was some question.
Yes, how big, for example, a startup would they consider to be big enough to integrate a corporation?
I know a couple of examples for this bank, and startups were on the stage usually of product market fit. So not in the problem solution fit. If you are on the stage, they were taken to the acceleration program or any or for mentoring program by bank, for example. But if we are talking about acquisition, the real acquisition, they need to be proven on the market. So they need to have this product market fit, or to say, anticipate it, let's say.
Thank you. We have to stop. One last thing. In fact, two last things. Put the microphone down. Please stand up. And we're going to do something impolite. You come here, but in the back of the scene. And you're going to turn your back to the audience. You're going to do like that, okay? And pull yourself together. And we're going to do a selfie, all right?
Are you ready?
So together, you smile, okay? You smile, you do whatever you want, okay? And the second one? Okay, now massive round of applause. Thank you, dziękuję, grazie, merci.